It started like something simple. Just another sitcom about a group of strangers in a community college. Nothing too special. Nothing too risky. But somehow, Community became something else entirely. It became chaotic, brilliant, unpredictable. A show that broke its own rules, rewrote what comedy could be, and turned a small, struggling college into one of the most unforgettable worlds in television history. Yet behind the fast-talking jokes, the clever references, and the absurd adventures at Greendale, the real stories of the people behind these characters were even more intense, more complicated, and in some cases, far more dramatic than anything ever written in the script. So before we go any further, stay with me until the very end, because one story in particular took a turn so shocking, it didn't just change a career, it changed the entire show. And even now, years later, fans still can't stop talking about it. Community, which aired from 2009 to 2015, wasn't just another comedy series trying to make people laugh. It was a phenomenon. Created by Dan Harmon, the show brought together a group of misfits, each one lost in their own way, who found themselves attending Greendale Community College. On the surface, it looked like a simple setup, but what followed was anything but ordinary. The show blended absurd humor with emotional storytelling, jumping between timelines, parodying entire genres, and constantly breaking expectations. One episode could feel like a heartfelt drama, the next, a full-scale action movie. And somehow, it all worked. But while the show itself thrived on chaos and creativity, what was happening behind the scenes was just as unpredictable. Cast members leaving unexpectedly, creative clashes, careers rising overnight, while others struggled to hold on, and controversies that would later redefine how fans saw the show forever. Because Community wasn't just wild on screen, it was just as complicated, messy, and real behind it. Danny Pudi was never supposed to be the loudest or most dramatic presence on the show. And somehow, that's exactly what made him unforgettable. As Abed Nadir, he became the emotional core of Community. Quiet, observant, and endlessly unique. A character who saw the world differently and helped the audience do the same. But unlike many of his co-stars, Danny's real-life story wasn't filled with chaos or controversy. In fact, it was the opposite. While others faced sudden fame, pressure, or public struggles, Danny built something rare in Hollywood: stability. He approached his career with the same thoughtful energy that defined Abed, carefully choosing roles, avoiding unnecessary drama, and slowly expanding his range. After Community, he didn't chase headlines. He built consistency. Voice acting became a natural next step. His distinctive tone and emotional subtlety made him a perfect fit for animated roles. Projects like DuckTales introduced him to a whole new generation, while longtime fans still saw glimpses of Abed in every performance. And perhaps that's what makes his story so refreshing. In an industry where so many careers rise and fall overnight, Danny Pudi simply endured. No scandals, no breakdowns, just steady growth and quiet success. Yvette Nicole Brown brought something deeply human to Community. As Shirley Bennett, she wasn't just funny, she was grounding. A character built on warmth, faith, and strength. And in many ways, that reflected who Yvette really is. While the show was still running, she made a decision that surprised many fans. She stepped away. Not because of conflict, not because of controversy, but because of family. Her father's health became her priority, and without hesitation, she chose to be there for him. In an industry that often demands everything, she chose something more important. That decision defined her story more than any role ever could. After leaving Community, Yvette didn't disappear. She evolved. Hosting, voice acting, guest appearances, she carved out a space where she could stay present in entertainment while still living life on her own terms. Her faith continued to guide her choices. Her energy remained authentic. And while she may not have chased the spotlight, she never lost it either. Alison Brie's journey feels almost like the opposite. Where some found stability, she found momentum. When she first appeared as Annie Edison, she was already talented, but still rising, still proving herself. But after Community, everything changed. Her career didn't just grow, it exploded. From Mad Men to BoJack Horseman, from indie films to major Hollywood projects, Alison became one of the most versatile actresses of her generation. And yet, with that success came something else. Pressure. The pressure to maintain momentum, to choose the right roles, to stay relevant in an industry that moves faster every year. But Alison handled it differently. She didn't chase fame blindly. She built it carefully. Her marriage to Dave Franco became one of the rare Hollywood relationships that felt grounded and genuine, away from scandals, away from constant headlines. And while her fame continued to rise, she protected something even more valuable: her privacy. Because sometimes, the real success isn't just being seen everywhere. It's knowing when to step back. Jeong's story might be one of the most unexpected of them all. Because before the fame, before the chaos of Ben Chang, he was a doctor. A real one. Medicine was supposed to be his life. Comedy was just a side passion. But somewhere along the way, everything shifted. And once he stepped into comedy, there was no going back. On Community, Ken unleashed a level of unpredictability that few actors could match. Chang wasn't just funny. He was completely unhinged. And yet, behind that wild energy was someone deeply grounded in real life. Ken's journey wasn't built on overnight success. It was built on risk. Walking away from a stable medical career to chase something uncertain, something fragile. But it paid off. Still, fame didn't define him. Family did. Through interviews and personal stories, Ken has always made it clear, his greatest priority isn't Hollywood. It's the people waiting for him at home. And maybe that's why, no matter how chaotic his characters become, there's always something real behind them. Jim Rash might not have been the loudest name when Community began, but over time, he became impossible to ignore. As Dean Pelton, he created one of the most bizarre, hilarious, and strangely heartfelt characters on the show. Every entrance was unpredictable, every line unforgettable. But what many people didn't realize was that Jim's biggest success wasn't even on screen. Behind the scenes, he was building something far more powerful. As a writer. And not just any writer, an Oscar-winning one. His work on The Descendants earned him one of the highest honors in Hollywood. And suddenly, the quirky Dean from Community wasn't just a comedic actor. He was a creative force. Unlike many in the industry, Jim never chased the spotlight aggressively. He moved quietly, strategically, balancing acting, writing, and storytelling in a way that gave him long-term influence, not just temporary fame. And that's what makes his journey so fascinating. While others fought to stay visible, Jim Rash built something lasting, just beneath the surface. By the way, I'm curious, who was your favorite character in Community? Was it Abed with his brilliant mind, Annie with her determination, or someone totally unexpected? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know. Gillian Jacobs brought Britta Perry to life as the outspoken, rebellious voice of the group. At first, she seemed like the confident outsider, the one who had everything figured out. But as the show went on, Britta became something more complicated. Messy, vulnerable, real. And in many ways, that reflected Gillian's own journey. Long before Community, she faced a battle that many never saw. A struggle with alcohol that began early in her life. It wasn't something played for headlines. It wasn't something she tried to turn into a story. It was personal, difficult, and deeply real. But she made a decision to step away from it, to rebuild. And that choice shaped everything that came after. By the time she stepped into Greendale, she wasn't just acting. She was grounded, focused, present. After the show, she didn't chase fame in the loudest way. Instead, she reinvented herself quietly, taking on more serious roles, moving behind the camera, becoming a director. Her career became less about attention and more about control. Because sometimes, the most powerful transformation isn't the one everyone sees. It's the one you choose for yourself. McHale was, in many ways, the face of Community. Jeff Winger wasn't just the leader of the group. He was the anchor, confident, charismatic, effortlessly in control. At least, on the surface. Because behind that polished image, Joel was navigating something far more complicated. Expectation. As the leading man, everything rested on him. The tone of the show, the chemistry of the cast, the balance between comedy and emotion. And outside of Community, another challenge waited. Typecasting. For years, Joel had built his identity around comedy. Sharp timing, sarcastic delivery. But there was always a question. Could he be more than that? Could he step into serious roles and be taken seriously? The answer didn't come easily. His career moved in waves. Big opportunities, followed by quieter periods. Success, followed by uncertainty. And yet, he never disappeared. He adapted. Hosting, acting, voice work. Finding new ways to stay relevant without losing who he was. Because sometimes, the hardest role isn't the one you play on screen, it's figuring out who you are when the spotlight shifts. Donald Glover's story feels almost unreal, because when he first appeared as Troy Barnes, he was just beginning. Funny, charismatic, full of potential. But even then, there was something different about him, something bigger. And eventually, that feeling turned into a decision that shocked everyone. He left, at the height of the show, at the moment when everything was working. He walked away, not because he failed, but because he wanted more. And what came next changed everything. Childish Gambino wasn't just a side project. It became a global force. Music that broke boundaries, stories that challenged audiences, a creative vision that refused to stay in one lane. Acting, writing, directing. Donald didn't just build a career, he built an identity. But with that level of creativity came pressure. The need to constantly evolve, to never repeat himself, to live up to expectations that kept growing. And behind the success, there were moments of exhaustion, of stepping back, of questioning everything. Because being a genius doesn't make life easier. Sometimes, it makes it heavier. Chevy Chase was already a legend long before Community began, a pioneer of comedy, a name that defined an entire era. So when he joined the show, it felt like something special. Pierce Hawthorne wasn't just another character. He was history, stepping into a new generation. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as they seemed. Conflicts began to surface. Not small disagreements, but real tension. Clashes with cast members, arguments with the creator, moments that blurred the line between character and reality. And slowly, the situation escalated. Reports of difficult behavior, creative differences that couldn't be resolved, until eventually, he was gone. His exit wasn't quiet. It wasn't clean. It left questions. It left tension. It left a mark on the show that fans could feel. For some, it was disappointing. For others, inevitable. Because sometimes, even legends struggle to adapt. And when worlds collide, not everyone stays until the end. And then, there's the story that might explain everything. Dan Harmon, the creator, the mind behind Community, the one who built Greendale from nothing, and then lost it. At the height of the show's success, he was fired. Not by the audience, not by the cast, but by the very system that helped bring his vision to life. The reasons were complicated. Creative conflicts, personality clashes, a reputation for being difficult. And suddenly, the show continued without him. But something was missing. Fans felt it. The tone shifted. The magic wasn't quite the same. Because Community wasn't just a script. It was his voice. And without it, something broke. But this isn't where the story ends. Because somehow, he came back. Rehired, restored, given another chance. And with that return came redemption. Not perfection, not a clean slate, but growth. Because Dan Harmon's story isn't just about success or failure. It's about what happens when talent collides with ego, when creativity meets consequence, and when someone is forced to confront who they are before they can rebuild what they created. Years have passed since Community first aired, and yet somehow, Greendale never really left us. Maybe it was the jokes, the paintball wars, the timelines, the chaos, the endless references that somehow made everything feel smarter and funnier at the same time. But if you really think about it, that's not what stayed with us. It was the feeling. That strange, messy, completely imperfect group of people who didn't belong anywhere else, but somehow belonged together. A family that wasn't supposed to work, and yet it did. Because behind every joke, there was something real. Behind every absurd moment, there was truth. And behind every character, there was a person. A real life filled with ambition, with mistakes, with reinvention, and sometimes with struggles far deeper than anything we ever saw on screen. Some of them went on to become global stars, building careers bigger than anyone could have predicted. Some chose a quieter path, stepping away from the spotlight to focus on life beyond Hollywood. And some left behind stories that fans still debate to this day. Stories filled with conflict, controversy, and moments that changed everything. Because in the end, Community was never just about a college. It wasn't just about classes or credits or even friendship. It was about something much more human. Trying to find your place in the world, even when you feel like you don't fit anywhere. And maybe that's why, After all these years, we're still watching, still remembering, still coming back. If this brought back memories for you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. And tell me, which story surprised you the most?